Aloha and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Got Your Six podcast. This six-question podcast brings together high performers to share their methods, strategies, and ideas, delivered in an informative and, most importantly, actionable way that'll help you lead yourself and those around you from the battlefield to the boardroom. Coming to you every episode, I'm your host, Tony Nash. And into the breach.
Nothing mentioned on this podcast is an endorsement or opinion of the Department of Defense.
I got your six, we got your back. Got your six, we got your back. Got your six, we got your back. I got your six.
Sixers, this is a fantastic episode. You heard Seb's bio. I mean, we're talking about the ultimate servant leader, giving his blood, literally his blood, sweat, and tears into VETWOD. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm very excited about this.
As am I. I've been looking forward to this one. So right now, your plate is literally full. Kids, VETWOD, everything you do inside and outside of your professional life. Going back to your time in the Air Force, would you say there's one thing that really kind of set you up for where you are in life? Is there one thing you took away, you kind of implement daily from your time in the military?
I think so, man. So maybe a little bit before the military too. I was a little bit older in life when I joined. I went to college. I played soccer. So when I joined, I was a little bit older. I was already married.
Okay.
And I kind of took a little bit of maturity and of the tough lessons life had given me. And I really I just had the mindset of maximizing every opportunity, doing as much as I could, serving as much as I was physically and mentally able to. So pair that with, you're trained to be a machine, you're trained to be efficient, you're trained to complete a mission, you're trained to replicate yourself in your troops as far as like supervising and leading. And it really just changed my mindset, and I think forever. And my wife will agree to this. I'm very like goal-oriented, mission-oriented, and I'm all about maximizing every single day, getting the most out of myself, out of people, out of situations. So yeah, I think still daily, the military has shaped me in that facet where I'm like, I have 24 hours in the day. Let's put it to good use.
Right. So that's an interesting point you bring up about being efficient in the day, especially, from your time in the military and the Air Force now, what you're doing in the professional world. Along the way, though, everything isn't, as we've talked about before, off camera and everything. There's failures along the way. So how do you adapt? And like, really, where would you say your failure has ultimately led to a great success, or your greatest success?
Yeah, I mean, we're a compilation of failures, I think. I think, I don't know. I feel like, in general, I've failed a lot, and I think part of the reason why, not one sticks out more than the other is because I can always say that I tried, and as long as I try and I learn from those failures, then like you mentioned, we turn them into success. But I think that failures to me, and I don't know if it's good or it's bad, but I kind of have a respectful fear of failure. Not necessarily because I'm scared to try or I'm scared to fail, but I'm scared of making the same mistakes that I made before, and really either failing people, hurting people. Think about what I think about a lot, and I talk to my wife about this, parenting. I mean, the fear or like the reality that we have these lives in our hands, and it's up to us whether they're going to be good people, contributing members, respectful. So that like that fear of failure, drives me somewhat. And, if I want to get personal, I could say that the biggest failure that has really made me who I am today is the failure of my father not being who he should have been. And that is what drives me to be the father that I wish I had. And not in a hateful or like resentful way, because we made amends, and so that part of my life is healed, and there's been closure, but that still drives me to be the person that, I wish I had, or the person that, I wish my dad was, I guess. So failures, in a lot of ways, I just see them as learning lessons, and as, not to embrace them, I guess, and I'm not saying go out there and fail a bunch on purpose, but, if we take those and learn from them, I think that, they're lessons.
Yeah. And those, not everybody gets to make amends, right? And you've been able to not only do that, both, from what you've said with your father, and then also with your kids, right? Because you're going through this essentially for really the first time, right? From a different perspective. So you're trying to like make sure there's a balance on both sides. So there is that, because failure ultimately leads to vulnerability. And that's a huge part of like being able to put yourself out there. It's what you do with VETWOD. It's what you do being an EMT, right? You put yourself out there as you try to provide care and service to other people. You don't always know how it's going to end up, right?
And in some of those cases, man, I guess, in that setting, being a medic or a flight medic, or even now being an ER nurse, failure could mean the loss of a limb, the loss of eyesight, the loss of life. And so, I mean, stakes are high, but at the same time, you can't be guided by fear of failure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That paralysis for inability to act would completely shut down, and the toll and in the negative will always be greater. And that doesn't come overnight, right? Like that comes through trial and error and time, and dealing with a lot of things that aren't easy to deal with, and having that tough conversation both externally with others and internally with yourself, right? Because a lot of the battle, and this is a lot of what you guys do over at VETWOD, right, is trying to combat that battle that happens in between your ears, because that's ultimately like one of the hardest battles we all face. Has that come about as a new belief within the last 5 years, or is there a new belief or behavior that you've kind of adapted, or habit that really has kind of improved your life, and that ability to accept failure, appreciate it, learn from it, and drive yourself farther?
Yeah, I think I've had to be careful, because you kind of don't want to be on either side of the extremes. But one of the things that I've really learned over the process, and VETWOD and street parking, my other job has really helped me, is that oftentimes we feel this pressure or this I guess systemic pressure, to go all out, to hit a home run, to all or nothing, right? So you're either a failure or a success. There's no in between, or there's no, it's almost like everything has to be like an overnight success, right? But, the trajectory isn't always straight up. There could be like this, and at times maybe you plateau, or, at times if life happens, maybe you can come down a little bit, right? As long as you go back up again. So it's been really to focus on the little things, and to adapt, to change my mindset of, just going for it, just doing a little bit, maybe especially now with kids, like maybe I don't have hours in my day to devote to something, but 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 5 minutes here. A 5-minute workout is better than nothing. I don't have time for 2 hours at the gym. So all these things, right, that have changed my mindset of chip at it, chip away at it. Start making progress. Even if at times it would seem that it's not, that much. You're making progress in the great scheme of things. And when you do have time, when the kids do allow you, or when life gives you a little bit of a break or whatever, then if you have more time, for sure, pour that in. But it's that, and I think Julian and Miranda, my boss from Street Park, and they always say more than nothing. So doing something, even if it's a little bit, even if it's preparation or something, it's more than doing nothing at all. And really, that's been driving me as a husband, as a father, as a coach, running VETWOD with my family, with friends, like a little bit here and there, progress over time, in fitness and nutrition, and as a man, in all ways, just this lifelong journey, big picture, as opposed to like, that kind of like that tunnel vision.
Yeah. So really you've been able to adapt and understand you're playing the long game as opposed to like this very short, set of rounds. You're going for you're looking at the whole story, the legacy piece of it, as opposed to just that finite piece. Cause it's funny you say like, there's dips and stuff and overnight successes. When people see an overnight success, it's because they're zoomed into the micro instead of looking at the macro.
So they're seeing a peak instead of the whole graph. Yeah. That's a good perspective, man.
So to put that into practice, right? Looking at the long game, what's one skill or ability or even talent that you've put yourself out there to learn, applying that long game mindset recently?
So it's what we're doing right now, just getting out, outside of my comfort zone and doing things that I never envisioned or dreamed about or, grew up desiring. For example, social media, podcasting, public speaking, creating content. Those are never things that I grew up wanting to do or had any interest at all. But somewhere along the road, I realized that they could be helpful to help others, to connect with others, to give back, to reach people. And I'm usually a pretty private person, but I've also found the power in being vulnerable and telling people like, hey, honestly, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. And I struggle. I have issues. Life isn't easy, but here I am, and being able to let people in so that we can help each other. Specifically with Street Park and VETWOD and personally, a lot of the social media content creation, that's all new to me and it doesn't come natural to me. So it's an ongoing just learning how to connect with people, how to share, how to help, how to give back, how to enrich people, or maybe even just give them a little bit, and I think that's obviously with technology and lack of time, all the equation, that's constantly learning.
So when it comes to content creation, what have you found so far? Like what have you learned? Like,
I've learned that simple is more often than not best. I've learned that, respect to everyone that is a legit content creator. because it's tough. It takes time, it takes creativity, it takes resources. And at times I'm just like, my mindset, especially with that, is I just do what I can, and if it looks good, awesome. And if it doesn't look good, well, I mean, it is what it is. But, it's just respect for the profession, or for those that, do that for a living, or are aspiring content creators. And second, for me, just, again, just going for it, just doing what I can. A lot of times is just putting ideas and thoughts and prior experiences, and just putting them on paper, and trying to come up with something. And so now I'm trying to take a step back and be able to look at the long game with this as well. And we've talked about this before, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but my wife and I are both nurses, and we alternate taking assignments. So she's a stay-at-home mom when I'm at the hospital, and then I'm a stay-at-home dad when she's at the hospital, which is currently, the situation we're in. During that time that she's working and I'm at home, then I can pour a little bit more into self-development, giving back to the communities that I belong to. And so for the past couple months, like, I've been really, really being able to focus on learning and on teaching myself things, and using, people like you, friends. I'm blessed to have a ton of successful, talented, creative, hardworking men and women around me that are just like awesome with teaching. And I have a mind that I ask questions, and I don't care about looking like, I'm not ashamed to look ridiculous or to be annoying. Like, I just want to learn. So I'm always asking questions and picking people's brains and stuff. So
you bring up two interesting points I want to kind of dive into. One, and I know people are listening to this podcast and they're going to be screaming at me during this. We can't hear you, but no, I feel your pain. I can't remember who this quote is attributed to, but I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time. Right. And I think that beautifully wraps up what you talked about, especially when it comes to content creation. And then asking questions, right? Which goes back to that vulnerability piece. And I've never seen anybody ask a question and they feel stupid afterwards, because now you've started to apply this filter we'll call it a filter, this lens to life, right? You're being able to take perspective from your vantage point, your life experience, and see how there's commonalities between you and, other humans, right? Men, women, everybody. And then try to convey something and understand their pain, their suffering, their success, their victories, and all of that. And that really kind of takes you away from being an individual and put you into like that tribe mentality, and that's the beautiful thing about VETWOD, right? Is everyone kind of comes there because they're looking for that community, and they know they can find it around that shared hardship. And that's what you share, right? When you apply it. And yeah, not every post, as the kids say, slaps. And that's kind of how life goes. Not every joke for every comedian, I don't care how funny you think they are, not all of them always work, right? That's why they're constantly iterating. And that's a beautiful thing you touched upon. And that was my second point, is like iteration. It's not just, I'm great right now, I'm going to continue to get better, right? So I really appreciate you saying that, man, because that's so powerful. So as you've kind of gone through and continuing to ask questions, is there like a book or like a speaker, a TED Talk, a course, or something that's really just been such a massive influence to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, so I like to learn, man, and this is one thing. I joke around with my wife, and we always say that I'm a student. I'll always be a student. I'll always want to be in a course or I remember when I was in the military, I would go to college and take classes because it was free. Like I already had a degree, and I'm like, they're giving me money for college for free. Like I'm gonna go, just because. So I think that as far as a base and that I always go back to, for sure, the Bible. And some of my most favorite parts of the Bible that are really applicable that I go back to often are the parables, because they have a very I don't know, it's just like it can be useful in everyday life, because a lot of the Bible is, history and a lot of good stuff too. But I think the parables are very, you can digest it and it's tangible. But I'm taking information in all the time, man, from podcasts to audiobooks to actual books, which is a lot, as I get busier, is a lot less actual books and more podcasts and audiobooks. But I mean, I just have too many to list, man. I would say one that comes to mind in the last few years is probably Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I also like a lot of Jocko Willink stuff. I also like a lot of fiction and a lot of, just like thrillers. So I don't know.
The gamut.
It just kind of depends on what piques my interest, and then I just go back to it or just I don't forget it. One that I read a while back, and I've read it actually like 3 or 4 times by now, is and this one was because as a father it really helped me a lot, was The Shack, and amazing book. But yeah, so it just kind of depends, on what season I'm in my life, what's going on, how much time I have, what is upcoming that I can, kind of benefit from, I guess.
What about The Shack drove you to keep coming back?
So I don't want to give it up because it's a really awesome book, but have you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, you've read it. Okay.
Yeah, but I know there's people out there, so we don't want to spoil it for them. But just like
yeah. So
yeah.
It had a lot to do with my past. It had a lot to do with my father not being there, and a lot of the trauma growing up, or trauma of either losing someone or just searching. So yeah, as a young man, it spoke to me about forgiveness, spoke to me about love, unconditional love, about grace, self-development, spirituality, of course, but also putting the work in so that you can help yourself become better and grow, because even if God is God, and there is still a requirement for you to receive it, or to ask for, to knock on the door. And that's the journey. The journey doesn't unfold, or I guess it will, but probably not the journey you want. It won't unfold by luck. It won't, you won't get to where you want to go, or where you're supposed to go, by sitting on the couch. So I think I'm very, very interested in the journey, and just everybody's journeys, and I respect that. So this helped me a lot, especially during that time and where I was in my journey.
Do you feel that journey that you're on is what drives you to continue to learn and talk to other people and share and be vulnerable, because you seek constant enlightenment? And I know that's a reach in terms of what we know, we might never get there, we most likely won't, but going down and experiencing that journey and really opening and pushing out those paths as opposed to just staying still is kind of what drives that constant like desire to learn?
Yeah, I think so. I just, I don't know, maybe it's the underdog mentality, maybe it's the chip on my shoulder, maybe it's the, I was told I couldn't do this or couldn't do that, or statistically, I should have been here or done that. But, you know, or maybe it's because I feel it right now, just that feeling of like, I can't be put in a box. Like, there's nothing that I can't do if I don't put my mind to it. And, coming to United States and starting over again and going through all the things that I did, and even today, man, it's crazy because I have this, like, I don't want to use the word hate because it's a strong word,
Right.
but I have this big dislike for people saying in various forms something like, oh, you're so lucky, or oh, you're living the life, or it's just something along those terms, because I feel like it's a disrespect not only to me but to everyone that works really hard and that maximizes their opportunities and that knocks on 1,000 doors so that one door can be open, or that get kicked out and they get back up and then they climb back up, or they slipped and fell and maybe they can't walk or climb but they're crawling. So I don't know. I don't know what's in my DNA that makes me be and I've been called this in various times in my life, a go-getter. But that's just, I'm wired that way, and I'm sure the trauma from in my upbringing and the military and now with like having to multitask like crazy as a father, I think those are all things that it's just I've had to adapt to that, and if you slow down, man, you're going backwards, I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
Do you feel that there's sympathy? I know you said you don't want to use the word hate, but do you feel sympathy for those people that just aren't willing to commit and follow a direction? Because when people say you're lucky or you're an overnight success, it's like, yeah, I am 20 years in the making. And that's a like, because some people might see that as a compliment, like, I absolutely am. And, people could say that, and because you were willing to put in the work and you're continuing to put in the work. I don't know. This is open for, I want to get your thoughts on that.
No, I like that, because you're like peeling the layers. So first of all, I don't think I'm a success. And am I happy? Am I content with where I am and what I've accomplished? Yes. I'm happy and appreciative. And I'm aware that I've been able to go to really cool places and, meet really cool people, been blessed by how much, people have blessed me and opportunities that I've had. But I'll never, I don't know if I'll ever consider myself successful. And, that might be part of who makes, what makes me me, that I'll never consider myself successful. Right. So to your question, is there sympathy for those people? Yeah, absolutely. So it bothers me, but at the same time, like I don't turn and say anything bad to them or negative. Instead, what I say, and I say this to people all the time, I'm like, guys, like, and this is as honest as it can get. Like, if I was able to do that, rest assured you were able to do it. It's going to take work. It's going to take, you getting up early or you staying up late, or, being vulnerable, applying to things, writing, doing whatever it takes to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But you're able to do it. Like I wasn't getting any special opportunities or any elite, entrances or opportunities to things. No, I was given a body and a mind and whatever I had to do to make things happen, right? So at the same time that I understand where they're coming from, I want to make sure people know that I am just your average Joe. I am just your neighbor, your friend, your teammate. There's nothing special about me. I didn't walk into a ton of money, or my parents didn't leave me a fortune, or a company already established. Like I'm as self-made as anyone out there. Obviously, again, with very much appreciation of everyone that's helped me along the path, and everyone that's adopted me and welcomed me and helped me. But anyone can do it. Honestly, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the fastest, but I think that one thing that I do have, and maybe it helps in every other area, is I just don't know how to quit. And sometimes that's not good.
Yeah. So it sounds to me, right, and this is just Tony Nash, and I'm not trying to talk in the third person, even though I did. You unlock the cheat code, right? And this is a huge piece, right? Your limits are not fixed. You're able to move that wall continually forward, right? Because if you touch it, you're done. Like you're out. You've exhausted all resources. You're 6 feet under, right? But you recognize those limits can be moved and pushed farther away as you continue to look. And that's why you say you're not successful, or you don't feel like you're a success, because your goals continue to evolve as you continue through different iterations in your life.
That's a great point, man. I guess as I grow and as life happens and things unfold, what I thought was the ceiling, or what I thought was like it, as I grow, that also keeps going up. So I'll never get to like that floor where I'm like, oh, I'm good. That's a great point.
Yeah. So going back, like you said, you don't deem, I'm using air quotes, successful, and you've hinted at this and you've kind of talked, but I'm going to ask you directly. So then what makes you better than yesterday?
I think is being able to adapt, resiliency, and knowing that, today everything went great. My wife's at work, the kids are asleep, everything's good, everything's perfect. I'm talking to you, having a good time, right? But tomorrow that may not be the case. Tomorrow, a misfortune could happen, or it's maybe not such a good day as a parent, or it's raining and our camper gets flooded, or whatever, right? But just knowing that I'm going to be able to get through and adapt and overcome, and really be content and happy regardless of what's happening. So it's basically being able to know that no matter what comes my way, I'm going to do what it takes to problem solve, to become better, to change my surroundings, to help others, to really not allow myself to go downhill, I guess, if I can say it that way.
Thank you so much for allowing us and showing us, right? Like you see yourself better than yesterday because you're able to rise to the moment. When called for, whatever that day or thing presents itself to be, you're willing and ready to answer that call. So thank you so much for taking the time, Seth. I really appreciate it, brother. Where can people find out more about VETWOD? If you're looking to hire different people, because I know the team's growing constantly. Tell us, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, so all things VETWOD will be just VETWOD. So VETWOD.org, VETWOD on Instagram, VETWOD on Facebook, and you can just also type us in on Google, VETWOD. Yeah.
And what about you? Where can people go to find you? Are you on like Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook, but it's mostly for street parking, because we connect to our members, and we're constantly engaging through Facebook, but it's both Facebook and Instagram. It's Seb_Felipe. So you can find me that way, or you could, if you go to the VETWOD website and you shoot us an email, I also respond to emails that way.
So if you want to get a hold of the man himself, he's from his words, I'm saying him again, reach out to him. We're going to make sure everything's linked out in the bio of this episode. I can't thank you enough. This was an absolute pleasure. I can't tell you I lost count of how many times I got goosebumps during this episode, in all the right ways. And Seb, thank you so much for having our six.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, and it really, there's mutual respect, because I know how much you do and how much you give back. So thank you.
I don't know what you've been told, Sixers, but the lawyers would like us to remind you that the views, opinions, and comments expressed on the Got Your Six podcast are solely those of the hosts or guests, to include current and previous Department of Defense employees, and should in no way be considered the opinions of or endorsements on behalf of the Department of Defense or any of its components, divisions, contractors, or other current and previous staff members.